here with another Conversations with Christians Engaged. We're doing a series. You can go back through our archives of our podcast where we're talking to different elected officials about what their job is. You know, what does the Railroad Commission do? What is the state comptroller's job? Go check out our archives and go listen to Glenn Hager, our state comptroller, and go listen to Christy Craddock, our railroad commissioner. And we're going to continue to do this series where we kind of break open what does that elected official do? Now, we haven't really talked to any county officials, but we are going to start doing that. And I am really thrilled to have Judge Wayne Mack, who is a 35-year resident of Montgomery County and the Justice of the Peace down there. And I am excited to have him. Judge Mack, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I love your story because you were a custodian working the night shift in the Montgomery County building maintenance and then became the Justice of the Peace. You have a long, distinguished career in public service, law enforcement. You were elected in 2014 as the Justice of the Peace over Court 1, and you have court offices in Willis and Montgomery County. And I'm going to get into your court case of, you know, kind of how we both became clients of First Liberty in a minute. We'll talk about that too. But sure. I just love that you really just communicate to people the importance of servant leadership. And so many people they underestimate the power of what we can do on a local and county level. And you were recently named Justice of the Peace of the Year for 2020 by the Justice of the Peace and Constable Association of Texas. I mean, that is a very, very cool thing by your peers. And you've also been married to your beautiful wife, Mindy, who works for the Conroe Police Department for a long time. I want to hear about that. I'm sure she's wonderful to put up with you for all those years. And you have 3 grown children and 6 grandchildren. So, Judge Mack, how are you?
I'm blessed. And so thank you, Bunny, for what you're doing. And I just love the name of your organizations, Christians Engaged. That's what it's all about. And so thank you for doing this.
Well, we should be engaged. So tell everybody a little bit of your story. How do you go from a custodian to the courthouse? And what specifically, what was the posture of your heart when you're cleaning toilets and mopping the floors that would put you in a position where God could elevate you and give you favor in the years to come?
So 36 years ago today, I moved to Montgomery County to take a non-paid internship of the church and working in the youth department. To fund that, I found out that the county was hiring in their maintenance department night custodians. And so I went to work and I applied for the position and was blessed enough to get it. And so I was in charge of the courthouse, sweeping and mopping floors at the courthouse, cleaning restrooms, cleaning offices. And my dad, when I moved to Texas, says, I don't have any money to give you, but what I do have is some advice. And he says, I don't care. Little did I know prophetically he'd be speaking over me. He said, I don't care if you're just the janitor, be the best janitor. And I won't use the other word he used, but be the best janitor, there is. And I don't care if you're just the janitor, but be the best and God will use you and things will happen.
Yes.
And little did I know, a few months later, I would be doing that. And so I was sweeping and mopping the floors at the courthouse. I was raised on a dairy farm back home, and we just did everything as unto the Lord. And so I took those same skills I learned as a teenager and just did them as unto the Lord. And Bunny, I've worked for the county now going on, it'll be 35 years, I think, in December. I've never, ever asked for a raise. I've never asked for a promotion. The favor and hand of God, I just worked and did as unto the Lord. And so I went from a custodian to a supervisor to a foreman to assistant director and director of building services. I was appointed, and then I was elected to this position in 2014. I was involved in the community. I've served on 15 different nonprofit boards, very involved in the local community and the faith community, and my was always asked to seek public service. And I think that's the key. What we where we used to always go to people in our community that had a history of service, and we would ask them to serve in these elected roles, servant leaders. And so I was asked to serve, and I said the only position I'd ever, my kind of get out of jail free card was, I'll never run for anything other than justice of the peace. And I always had friends in those positions. And then Judge Moriarty, back in 2012, announced that he was not going to run. And I had literally hundreds of people come to me and say, you have to do this. And I prayed about it and felt like that's where what I was supposed to do. And so I've been serving in that role 2,699 days today. And in that 2,699 days, we've had over 80,000 cases processed through our court. Those are criminal fine only cases, lawsuits, $20,000 or less, where the court of original jurisdiction when it comes to evictions, whether you live in a $50,000 house or a $50 million house. If there's an eviction of some kind, it happens in a justice court. So it's a people's court.
Right.
Juvenile truancy cases, DUI for minors, minors in possession of drugs or alcohol. We do all that, violations of county ordinances, but also in our county, I'm also the coroner. There are 254 counties in Texas. Only 16 counties have medical examiners' offices. The rest of the Texas, the coroner duties fall on the justice courts of those counties. So in addition to our judicial responsibilities, I'm also the coroner. And so we have to do a death inquest, which means we have to determine the cause and manner of death. Law enforcement determines if a crime has occurred, but justice courts in Texas determine the cause and manner of death. We sign the death certificate. We have to do an inquest for every reportable death, whether that's in the hospital when somebody dies less than 23 hours, or somebody dies at home, a fatality, a suicide. I've had 2 suicides this week with families that I knew, and I knew their children. And those are very, very heartbreaking. And so I've done over 2,000 of those in my 2,699 days. I have done over 2,000 death inquests. And our county is one of the faster growing counties. We have a population of almost over 600,000 in this county. And we have 7 major hospitals here. I have 3 death investigators and 3 forensic pathologists that work under our authority that we utilize as well. So it's a very busy, I love what I get to do. I'm never really off. We do take on-call rotation on weekends, but this weekend, the one suicide I told you about was the family had requested me because they knew me. And so we were in the middle of some family stuff, and immediately we left and went to take care of that family and help them with the next steps of this. And God's put us in a position where we can impact lives. I get to, I've won people to the Lord as a result of just my day-to-day living. But being able to be with people and just kind of give people help and hope in the middle of the worst news of their life is a tremendous blessing for anybody, and especially as a believer, it's a blessing.
Well, that's such a powerful point that when we walk outside the walls of the church and we go out in the community, and though it seems like sometimes you're doing mundane things, I mean, you really have your hands in marrying and burying in some way.
Literally.
And literally being a part of people's lives in some of the, most important moments. I can imagine, if you're dealing with a truancy case and these young people that are skipping school, that's an important moment in their life, right? If they're coming before your court, or, people are being evicted from their homes, or their, the landlord issues. I mean, a lot of these are daily people's lives that are being affected. And when they have to come before you, you get to speak into their life in some aspect, hopefully.
Yes. And it's a great opportunity to be able to, when I'm in court, I'll say I read a book, and that book often, and I read this book often, and in this book it says, and I speak that, and I speak light to some very dark situations on a regular basis. And it, it's, as believers, we should seize every moment, every opportunity, whether it's in a position of where I'm in a very dark time, where somebody's made a mistake, or they're in a courtroom, or we're on a side of the road and they've gotten the worst news of their life. But if we're standing in line at Walmart, we're at HEB, or we're walking and we see a neighbor and we just know something's not right. As believers, we got to be sensitive to his Holy Spirit and seize every moment that he gives us, every opportunity. God, Bunny, does not need our abilities. He doesn't need our abilities. What God needs is our availability. He needs us to be available, the free flowing of his purpose, his power, and his plan. And the chaos we have in the world today is because as believers, we've gotten comfortable with writing a check and letting the government take care of the things that the church is supposed to be taking care of. And that's why we have the chaos that we have today. And I wrote a book a few years ago. Called The Directed Path, Using God's Compass. And I use Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It says, lean not unto your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. Doesn't say maybe, doesn't say if you're good enough, doesn't say if you fast till your belly button falls off, or if you can quote the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. It says, if you'll just acknowledge him and not lean on your own understanding, acknowledge him in all your ways, he shall direct your path. The body of believers in our nation, we have got to start understanding that we're running out of time, but we're not running out of opportunity. And It's time for the Church of Jesus Christ to stand up, to shine, and it doesn't matter how dark it gets, because the darker the night, the brighter the light. And we just need to shine on Jesus and get about the Father's business. Woo, I could preach right now. Lord,
so good. Well, we're going to get back into this but let's get into the nuts and bolts here. So people sometimes don't realize that justices of the peace do not have to have a law degree. And municipal judges they're appointed, but justices of the peace are elected. So what do people need to think about when they're going to elect their justice of the peace or their local county government officials? What are the qualifications or the leadership skills that they should be looking for when they're looking at those candidates, Judge?
So I think every candidate, from the lowest on the ballot to the highest on the ballot, we should look for servant leadership, because a great predictor of the future is the past. You see many times when a position opens up. We got a congressional district that just opened up in our county, District 8. There are 15 people that have signed, that are acknowledged they're going to run for this spot. And I start looking through the qualifications, and some of them have some great work history, but they have no history of serving the community. They have no history of making a difference and growing where they're planted. Yes. They're looking for a position. They're looking for power. They're not looking to make a difference. And that's where it's so very important. And yes, JP, you don't have to be an attorney. It's a people's court. 92% of justices of the peace and justices of the peace and constables in Texas are the largest elected body in Texas. There are more JPs and more constables elected throughout Texas than any other elected official. And so it's very important that we elect servant leaders, because it's a people's court. The judicial branch of government is there to protect you from the executive and legislative branches of government. In fact, we're your last protection from the judicial branches. And I mean, from the legislative and executive branch of the government. That's why we're the coroner, because they don't want the sheriff department to go out and investigate a death where they possibly had to shoot somebody and then somebody rule it as natural causes. They died of lead poisoning. Yes. It's to give that independent look. So the judicial branch of government's there to protect you. And a lot of times, Bunny, you look in Texas, a lot of positions in the history in the last 20 years, we've seen this surge of people getting in those offices that aren't servant leaders, and they become judicial activists versus the judicial branch of government. So when you go down the ballot, a lot of times the judicial positions are down further on the ballot. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not ever going to get in trouble, so I don't care who the judge is. There's a huge undervote throughout Texas in judicial positions where people don't even vote. They just, well, I don't really care about that because I'm a good person. I'm never going to be in court until you are.
Exactly.
Besides the fact that these positions have judicial precedent, especially in county court and district courts, where you have judicial precedent that now is enforced statewide. So very important that people get informed and get engaged with knowing who to vote for. And these are very, very important positions.
Yeah, the next conversation I'm having after you is with Judge George Flint up in Collin County about the judicial and county courts. And it's so important that people understand, we elect our judges here in Texas, and that is a huge responsibility for us. It affects business, it affects our individual lives, it affects our freedoms. And so we need to pay attention to our judges, guys, and who are electing in those aspects. Now, we're talking about Congress. So a lot of people, they feel this urgency to do something for America. And God is really starting to stir them up. And so they instantly start thinking about running for something, right? I know you've encountered these people all the time. And there's God's doing something in their life, but they instantly start thinking about, I need to run for Congress. I need to run for Congress. They make this giant leap because that's all they really follow is the federal government. And so like we were talking about this one district in District 8, all these people running. How do you help people process that, Judge? Maybe there's some smaller things like city council, county positions that they should get involved with. How do you get people to see the value of that and not just jumping over to Washington, D.C., where many people are not supposed to be going?
I think the key here, Bunny, is that the faith community start teaching that believers are supposed to be good civil servants. The Apostle Paul took his Roman citizenship and used his Roman citizenship to bring the gospel to the whole world. We need to be good citizens. We need to be faithful to our families. We need to be faithful to the kingdom and faithful to the church, and we need to be good citizens. We need to be not so heavenly minded, we're no earthly good.
Yes.
And so we need to get to that place where we inspire other people to seek these offices. And school boards and city councils are so very important. And we're looking at Texas. There was concerns in the last few cycles that there was going to be a political shift in the color of what our state looks like, that we would go from a red state to a pink state to a purple state to a blue state. Well, there's a great strategy that other parties have used throughout the nation, and that's what they've done. They've gone to the city councils, they've gone to the school boards, they've gone to the commissioner's court, and they're winning in those positions. And as a result of that, they're laying a foundation for these values that we as Americans are starting to see the impact of that. The fact that prayer was yanked out of schools, but before prayer was yanked out of school, after prayer was yanked out of schools, it became okay for us to call a baby a choice. And 60 million babies have been aborted. And they've had a strategy. They've been very committed, the left and the things of the world. And, sinners are going to be sinners. That's the way that works. They're doing their job. The Apostle Paul told Timothy that in the last days, people would have forms of godliness and deny the power thereof, and heaping teachers unto themselves. He wasn't talking about sinners. He was talking about the church. That's going to happen in the church. And so it's time for the believers of the faith community to stand up and rise up and be good citizens and get engaged and get involved and make a difference. And it's in every position, being informed, knowing how important it is that you have someone in the Justice of Peace office that wants to make a difference, or a school board, or city council, or county commissioner, sheriff, or constable. These positions have a greater impact on your day-to-day living and then a congressional position. And so I've had, as you know, being an elected official, this Thursday, we're going to have our prayer breakfast, and we're going to have over 1,000 people at this prayer breakfast. Well, people automatically think if a justice of the peace gets 1,000 people at 6:30 in the morning at prayer breakfast, obviously he has higher aspirations, right? Well, I don't, but it's the favor and hand of God. I've done everything as unto the Lord. I have a reputation of the community of doing the things that I'm doing. And that's where we need to be faithful in the little things. I was faithful sweeping and mopping floors at the courthouse. God elevated me to the different positions. So I would encourage people that want to run, if you feel like God's called you to do something, then do it. But just make sure it's God and not just an over anxious want to see, well, if we change Congress, we change the world. No, we don't. It's got to start at home. It's got to start at home, because this is the way evil works. If evil has the home, then he's got the church. If evil's got the church, then he's got the community. If he's got the community, he's got the county. If he's got the county, he's got the state. If he's got the state, he has the nation. And that's where we need to be focusing, and we need to be moving. And I appreciate people having the ambition to want to serve, but to much is given, much is required. Many are called, but few are chosen. It's okay to be called, but you need to be chosen. You need to be that woman or that man that's supposed to be in that spot, and know that it's God and not just something in an act of flesh. But the thing is Bunny, I want to encourage people, if God tells you to run. Aren't you thankful that Abraham Lincoln felt called to run over and over and over and over again, and lost. Yes. And finally, he was elected president of the United States. Where would our nation be today had Abraham Lincoln not been there? So what prepared him for getting to the presidential position was all these other races that he ran. So just because, and this is, I'm just got to share this, and I'll stop. But this is what my son and I was driving him to school when I was in the middle of my first election. And he said, "Daddy, my friends have asked me, what are you going to do if you lose?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about, son?" He said, You're running against a county commissioner. Your boss." I worked for the 4 county commissioners, the county judge at the time. "You're running against a county commissioner's cousin. What are you going to do if you lose? He's your boss." And I immediately pulled over to the side of the road. I can show you right where we stopped. And I looked at my son. I said, "Austin," he said, "Dad, we're going to be late for school." I said, "That's okay. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. Life is not about winning and losing. Life is about doing. And I am doing what I feel called to. I am doing what God has called me to do. So I've already won. Now, if the voters here do not feel like I should be in that position, to God be the glory. But I'm doing what I feel God called me to do, Austin. And always remember, life is about doing, is not about winning or losing. And a lot of times with candidates, I know candidates have run and lost. They get discouraged and like, "I'm done. I'll never do that again." You can't do that. If you felt called to do it that time, if you felt called to do it that time, what's changed? God, I am the Lord and I change not. It was either God or it wasn't. And we got to understand, sometimes when God answers prayer and directs us, it's yes or grow. It's not yes or no. It's yes or grow. We choose to say yes, or we choose to grow. God answers a prayer yes, or he answers a prayer grow. And a lot of times I've watched this in the psycho-political. I know some great servant leaders in our community. They ran one race, they gave up, and they didn't win that race, and now they're done with the system. They're discouraged. Well, bless God, obviously these heathens don't know good. It has nothing to do with it. It's about God preparing you for such a time as this. If I would have took my custodial job, Bunny, and just said, "Well, bless God, is this all I'm going to do? I've come here to work in a church. Why am I not blah, 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 blah." It's about making yourself available to God's purpose, power, and plan.
Yes.
It's not about winning and losing. It's about doing. Jesus didn't, he in the Great Commission, he didn't say, get saved and stay. What does he say? Go. Go. And that's where we have, as a church and as believers, where we've messed up, is we have forgot that Great Commission. We are to go to the highways and byways and compel them to come in. Give them a reason to come into the kingdom of God. And like I said earlier, the church is running out of time, but we're not running out of opportunity. We need the viewers here they're pumped up. They're part of your organization because they're tired of the chaos. They're tired of stolen elections. They're tired of Chinese viruses. They're tired of these things. Use that passion, use that anointing, that calling on your life, and seize every moment and opportunity to grow and to say yes and go and be a part of the kingdom of God. Grow where you've been planted.
Yes.
Woo!
So good. Well, you have no idea that that's my message. You know, I almost won a congressional race, right? Duty is ours, results are God's. But I share in churches all over the state about how God's with us in the highest of highs, like me being the only person in the country endorsed by the vice president in the 2018 primary, to the lowest of lows, knowing I'm losing and knowing I've got to show up at the polls on a Tuesday morning. But the privilege is that we get to walk with Jesus. I got to walk
Amen.
with Jesus that day. I got to walk with Jesus the next day, and I get to walk with Jesus now. And what we were doing with Christians Engaged wouldn't have been birthed unless I had gone through that experience, right? And been obedient to the call of God on my life in that moment. So what you're saying is so powerful. I hope everybody grasps that. So Judge, we met about a month ago at the Texas Youth Summit, and we realized real quick that we had common friends, because our friends at First Liberty Institute, which I've heard Lathan Watts, their PR guy, say this over and over again at our seminars, that their ministry is here to protect our ministries, right?
Yes.
As believers, as we go out in the world and do what you just said, we are going to, if we're truly doing it, experience some conflict sometimes in this world. In this world, you will have trouble, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world, the Lord said. So I'm a former client of First Liberty. Thank God, Christians Engaged. Most of you guys know we were denied our tax exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. First Liberty took our appeal, and in 21 days, we had a national breakthrough, and they came back with an acceptance letter, because if they hadn't, that would have affected every ministry and church in America. If the IRS could define Bible teachings as Republican, crazy. But anyway, thank God for our friends at First Liberty. But you have a similar situation, but your case has been going on now 5 or 6 years. Tell them, everybody, what this has been going on and how they can pray for you in these
I
days.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Bunny. And I got to be limited in what I say, because my friends at First Liberty will
yes, we know.
You know how
I
lawyers
know
are.
The attorneys are watching.
Yes, but so 7 years ago, I was sent a letter from an organization called Freedom from Religion, telling me to stop my practice of acknowledging chaplains. One of my duties, as we've said, is I'm the coroner, and so I get to go to these scenes and be with families. And when they don't know who to call, we started a chaplaincy program, and literally every mosque, temple, synagogue, every church that you can imagine in our community, we have over 60 chaplains to respond and to these situations when families request it, or when we feel it's appropriate to be making a death notification. A lot of law enforcement agencies will bring a chaplain with them so they can stay with the family after they make that notification. And so we take a moment in our opening ceremony of our court to thank them. And if they choose to do so, we allow them to make a brief invocation. It's before court, before the docket is called. It's before court starts. We tell everybody we're going to do it. The bailiff even comes in and says, hey, this is a tradition of our court. If you don't want to be in here, this would be a great time to step out, use the restroom, you check your phone. We'll announce in the lobby when court is about to start. So you don't have to stay in the courtroom. And so when I do come in the courtroom, and all this is done with not in my presence. And then I come in the courtroom. We do the opening ceremony, acknowledge the chaplain, whoever that is. If it's a Christian chaplain, a Muslim chaplain, a Hindu, whatever, we acknowledge them. And if they choose to do a brief invocation, we allow them to do that. And then we do the pledges to the United States and the Texas flags. And this group was offended by that. We've had 2 complainants, I think a total of 4 complainants, but the lawsuit, it's 1 complainant. And we're at the 5th Circuit. We had an unfavorable ruling at the Houston court, and now we're at the 5th Circuit now. And so they're saying what we're doing is unconstitutional. Yet the Texas Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, all have an opening ceremony that include a brief invocation. It's a red prayer. It's the same red prayer. And people at judicial conduct, as well as the complainants in the suit, said, well, that's perfunctory. And my argument is the Constitution says Congress shall make no law regarding anything religion. The Congress shall make no law. Then if the U.S. Supreme Court can do it, Texas Supreme Court can do it. Government never gets to define what a prayer is. It doesn't get to define that. Our Constitution is clear. It's freedom of religion, not freedom from. And so that's where we're at in that lawsuit, and we're at the 5th Circuit. So I pray that people will pray that we have a favorable. There's no judicial precedent regarding this matter in the judicial branch of government. So it's very significant in that way. And so we're praying that God's favor continue to work. And thanks to the folks at First Liberty, them coordinating our defense, and their volunteer law firm that we have. I have 9 attorneys, Bunny, that are working on this case. And they have been. First Liberty's been leading this for 6 years. We've been in the battle for 7, and First Liberty for 6 years has been getting us through all the stages of this. This is our 3rd trip to federal court, judicial conduct. We've been there a couple times. It's but to God be the glory. The blessing
of this is when you win, which you will, this is going to protect freedom for every American. Again, not just Christians, but every American, that our First Amendment rights would be protected. And we're not supposed to be protected from religion, right?
Right.
I mean, the founders knew that we had to have a moral and conscious people to have self-government. And the fact that people out there are trying to keep religion completely out of our lives is so against the foundation and the fabric of this nation, that we all have to respond. We all have to respond in some way. And we're just so thankful for you, Judge, staying faithful in the midst of this. And I want everybody to just generate some prayers for Judge Mack in this case and for First Liberty. It's really, really important that we do that. So, final question. I always ask a personal question. Who's your favorite Christian music artist or worship artist? Who do you like to listen to? I know you listen to Christian music.
I do. I have a song list, a playlist that I actually play every day. And but
I have one of those.
And so I've been Zach Williams.
Come on, give me some names.
So here we go. Let me pull it up real quick. But Zach Williams, Fear is a Liar is on that list.
Oh, I love Zach Williams.
And let's see here. I can pull it up. Here we go. I'm very technology challenged, so yeah. So we've got on our list. We have Holy Water by We the Kingdom, Zach Williams, Lauren Daigle, Zach Williams, Casting Crowns.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes. And and that's my jam every morning.
You like the country feel, I can tell.
Yeah. Yes. I do.
Awesome. I'm a Leland girl and a Chris McClarney and Jesus Culture and all those guys. So awesome. Well, it's so good to hang out with you, Judge. I will see you this week. And we just thank God for your service. And I want to inspire people, guys. Local is so powerful. Local government and county government has more control of your life or impacts your life more than the federal government. And so we need to realize that and get involved on the local and county level. So thank you, Judge, for breaking that out for us. And let's just go impact America. I will see you guys November 5th and 6th. Come to our Christians Engage conference. You do not want to miss this. This is all about the awakening church. There are many of you listening to us right now that are awakening out of their sleep. You're like, I've got to do something. I've got to save the Republic. I've got to do something for America. Okay, come to our conference, November 5th and 6th. James Robison, Allie Beth Stuckey, Rick Perry, myself. I get to headline after Rick Perry. I'm excited about that. So many things. Corey Russell's going to be there from the upper room teaching us about prayer. Kyle Martin on the gospel. June Hunt on the power of the Bible. Across denominational lines, political and ministry leaders that love Jesus. Congressman Michael Cloud will be with us from the Coastal Bend. Don't miss this time of refreshing November 5th and 6th. So register on our website at christiansengage.org. Okay, we will talk to you guys soon, and share this with your friends and subscribe. Blessings. Bye-bye.